It was supposed to be my dream. Home, a secluded cabin nestled deep within the Blackwood Forest. I bought it for a price that seemed too good to be true, completely ignoring the unsettling local legends of people who simply vanished from these woods, swallowed by the trees without a trace. It was a bargain, premeditated myself a chance to escape the city's noise and find some peace. For the first few days, it was everything I'd hoped for. The silence was profound, a gentle blanket that calmed my frayed nerves. I'd spend my days hiking and my evenings reading by the fire. It was perfect. But on the fourth night, the silence changed. It became heavy, oppressive, almost suffocating. The air grew thick, and the familiar quiet of the forest felt charged with something ancient and aware. I was sitting in the living room, trying to lose myself in a book, when I heard it for the first time. It was a faint, rhythmic, scratching sound, coming from just behind the basement door. Scritch. Scratch. Scritch. Scratch. It sounded exactly like fingernails dragging slowly, deliberately across dry, splintered wood. My dog, who had been sleeping peacefully at my feet, shot up, a low growl rumbling in his chest, his eyes fixed on the door. I tried to dismiss it, a branch scraping against the house, a mouse trapped in the wall, but the sound was too methodical, too intentional. My curiosity, laced with a growing dread, got the better of me. I slowly walked to the basement door, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I placed my hand on the cold, brass doorknob and turned it. The moment the latch clicked open, the scratching stopped just like that. Silence rushed back in, leaving nothing but the cold, damp smell of earth and rot wafting up from the darkness below. I flicked on the light switch, but the single bare bulb at the bottom of the stairs only flickered weakly, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and recoil from the light. I called out, "Hello!" But only my own voice echoed back, thin and hollow. I quickly shut the door, my mind racing to find a rational explanation. But deep down I knew what I'd heard. The next day, the scratching returned, louder this time, more insistent. It started in the afternoon, while the sun was still high in the sky. A brazen violation of the unspoken rules of horror. It was no longer just at night. This thing was getting bolder. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Driven by a desperate need for answers, I went down into the basement, armed with a heavy flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, revealing stone walls slick with moisture and shelves filled with dusty, forgotten junk. I followed the memory of the sound to the far wall, a section paneled with dark, aging wood. As I ran my hand over the surface, I tapped on the wooden panels. Thud, thud, thud. Then, a different sound. A hollow, empty echo that was completely out of place. It wasn't on the blueprints I'd reviewed before buying the house. A hidden space. My breath caught in my throat. I went back upstairs, grabbed a hammer and a crowbar, and returned to the basement, my resolve hardening. I wedged the crowbar into a seam between the planks and pried. The old wood groaned in protest before splintering, revealing a dark, gaping hole. A hidden crawlspace. The air that poured out was stale and ancient. I shone my flashlight inside, revealing a small, windowless room, no bigger than a closet. The only things inside were a tall, ornate, silver-framed mirror leaning against the back wall, and a dusty, leather-bound journal lying on the floor in front of it. My hand trembled as I picked up the journal. The leather was cracked and dry. I carefully opened it, flipping through pages of neat, looping script detailing mundane life in the cabin. I went straight to the last entry. The handwriting here was completely different, a frantic, jagged scrawl, barely legible, dug into the page with immense pressure. It read, "Do not look at the reflection for more than 10 seconds. It's not a reflection. It sees you. Once the shadow learns to move on its own, the exchange has begun." I let out a short, nervous laugh, an elaborate prank of the previous owners. Surely, a ghost story. A ghost story. A ghost story. Still, my eyes involuntarily drifted towards the mirror. The silver frame was tarnished, but the glass was unnervingly clean, reflecting the dusty room and my own flashlight beam with perfect clarity. I saw my reflection looking back at me. A tense, slightly foolish-looking man standing in a dark hole in his own basement. It was normal. Everything was normal. But then, as I stared, I noticed something impossible. I raised my free hand to scratch an itch on my nose. But the man in the mirror didn't move. He stayed perfectly still, his hands hanging limp at his sides, his eyes locked onto mine with an expression of pure, cold malice that sent a shock of ice through my veins. My heart hammered against my ribs, and a scream built in my throat. But I couldn't look away. It was like his gaze held me captive, paralysing me. I was a statue, watching a nightmare unfold. Then, the reflection's lips began to curl upwards into a wide, unnatural grin. It stretched impossibly far, wider than any human mouth should be, splitting the face in the mirror into a terrifying crescent. It raised its hand, slowly, deliberately, and pressed its palm flat against the glass from the inside. The glass didn't shatter. It didn't crack. It rippled, like the surface of a pond, disturbed by a stone. I watched, frozen in abject horror, as a pale, elongated finger began to poke through the surface of the mirror, breaking the barrier between our worlds. The air grew frigid as that single, monstrous digit entered my reality. That was what finally broke the spell. I found the strength to scream, a raw, ragged sound that was swallowed by the stone walls. I scrambled backwards, dropping the flashlight in the journal, and bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut and fumbling with the lock. I stood there, panting, listening. The scratching started again. But this time, it was different. It was louder, frenzied, and it was coming from everywhere at once. From the walls around me, from the floor beneath my feet, from the ceiling above my head. It was inside the house with me. I realized with sickening certainty that the mirror wasn't the only gateway. Every reflective surface in the house had become a window for it. I glanced at the dark screen of my phone on the counter, and for a split second, I saw that grinning face staring back. I looked at the kitchen window, and his silhouette was there, superimposed over the dark woods outside. Even the polished, stainless steel toaster held his distorted, smiling image. He was crawling out of the darkness of my own home, using my own reflection as his key. I am writing this now by the faint, flickering light of a single candle. It's the only thing that doesn't cast a sharp, clear reflection. The power went out an hour ago. I can hear the wood of the basement door splintering, the lock giving way with a final, metallic groan. The scratching has stopped. Now, there are footsteps. Slow, heavy, wet footsteps coming up the stairs. The man who looks exactly like me is standing in the hallway, just beyond the reach of the candlelight. He's dripping with a black, oily substance that pulls at his feet. He isn't making a sound, but I can hear his voice inside my head. It's a calm, patient whisper, telling me it's time to switch places, that the mirror needs a new reflection. If you find this recording, do not trust the shadows. Don't stare too long at your own face in the dark, because once he sees you, he never, ever stops coming. The light is flickering. He's right behind me,